Hey, we've been starting out. Why don't you take 5 or 10 minutes and just give us the quick rundown on what you've accomplished in the last 4 years and why, what would you tell an average voter on why you deserve another 4?
Sure. Well, what I would tell the average voter, and what I would tell everyone in the room, is that by every objective metric, we've improved the state's finances and we've improved the operations in the Treasurer's office. I could make that picture more detailed by walking you through what the Treasurer's office looked like before I got in there, what it looks like today, and then also what the state's finances look like before I got in there and what they look like today. When I came into the state Treasurer's office, it was pretty much an ethics nightmare. I think a lot of your papers have covered the scandal from the Boyce administration, which ended up being the largest bribery and kickback scheme in the history of the state Treasurer's office. A guy named Amir Ahmad, who was the deputy treasurer, the top deputy under Treasurer Boyce, has been convicted of the largest bribery and kickback scheme in the history of the Treasurer's office. Upon waiting sentencing, he actually fled the country, became a federal fugitive, and he's now in prison in Pakistan as the U.S. government is working to extradite him back here to the United States. We've cleaned that up. We've earned a clean audit 3 years in a row. We made it clear that we did not want troublemakers, some of whom were in the Boyce administration, in our administration, and we also did not want to deal with banks that we felt did not have integrity, or at least had integrity issues. So we've cleaned it up, and we've made it clear that those people from the Boyce administration that had integrity issues were not welcome in our administration. And this bank, State Street Bank, which was at the center of the original investigation into the Boyce administration, we pushed them out as well, and basically said, listen, as treasurer, I need to keep the money safe and secure, and I don't feel safe with the money there with State Street Bank. That's actually one of the separating issues between my opponent and me. My opponent has actually been attacking me for taking the custodial business in the Treasurer's office and the pension funds away from State Street Bank. I'm proud of that decision. In fact, when the Columbus Dispatch endorsed my candidacy last week, they called that decision one of the reasons why they endorsed my candidacy. They specifically mentioned it in the editorial. And Cleveland Plain Dealer has done a full examination of my opponent's attack on me in that regard, and they found her attacks to be, quote, misleading and, quote, flat out wrong. When I came into the Treasurer's office, the state's financial ranking was 43rd in the country. Today, the state's financial ranking is 7th in the country. The organizations that do those financial rankings include Forbes Magazine and George Mason University. So these are not partisan organizations. These are nonpartisan organizations. And again, in just 3.5 years, we've taken the state's financial ranking from 43rd in the country to 7th in the country. Within the state treasurer's office, we've also voluntarily cut the budget 3 years in a row. We've saved taxpayers about $6 million. And we've also trimmed down the amount of people we have in the Treasurer's office, 140 budgeted positions under Treasurer Boyce, and we're down to 117 people now. In the Treasurer's office, we've also increased the bond rating for the Ohio Enterprise Bond Fund for the first time in a decade. This goes back through many treasurers, Democrat and Republican. You look back through Kevin Boyce, Richard Cordray, Jeanette Bradley, Joe Dieters, and I believe Ken Blackwell as well. This is the first time in about a decade where we've increased the bond rating for the Ohio Enterprise Bond Fund. On top of that, we've earned a AAA rating, the highest rating you can earn on the multi-billion-dollar investment fund I manage on behalf of local governments. And we've earned that AAA rating while about 14 states and local governments had their various funds downgraded throughout the country. And a lot of you probably saw in the news just probably 3-4 weeks ago, New Jersey was downgraded by Fitch as well. And so we've earned a AAA credit rating on the investment fund I manage. We've increased the bond rating 2 notches from AA- up to AA+, first time in a decade. And we've done all of that while voluntarily cutting the budget 3 years in a row and doing it with less people. I've had some people ask me, well, how'd you do that? And the answer is we've led in a fiscally responsible way. We've looked for ways to leverage technology to make the dollars go farther. And we've done it by hiring good people, people who have integrity, people who have financial expertise, and people who also have private sector expertise. been a leader, I would say the tip of the spear leader in the state of Ohio when it comes to government transparency. As state treasurer, I took the state's salary database. This was every salary for every state employee, put that on my website. It was the first time that those salaries had ever been posted in that searchable format in the state government website. We then took the state's property database, did the same thing with the thousands of state properties, and right now I'm currently working on a project to put the state's checkbook online. This will be the first time in the history of the state, and it will make us one of the only states in America where citizens and investigative journalists will be able to go on my website and see every single penny of state government and how it's spent. Everything from $2 for a pack of pencils to $2 million for a road contract and everything in between. And so we're very proud about that. The bill is called House Bill 175. It was introduced by Representative Mike DeVilla last May. Frankly, we thought it would be passed into law by now, but it took us over a year, unfortunately, to get it passed out of the House. It passed in 1 in the morning as the last bill to pass before they recessed, and now we're in the process of trying to get it expedited and passed out of the Senate this fall. Some people have asked me, well, hey Josh, why do you need legislation to do this? Why don't you just go do it on your own? The reason we're trying to go a legislative route, and the reason I've asked the legislature to compel me to do this, is because when I'm finished being done state treasurer, I want the next state treasurer and the one after that, to maintain this information online. It's going to be a great tool, as I mentioned, for taxpayers, but also investigative journalists. Dennis Hetzel, who runs the Newspaper Association, who I'm sure most of you in the room know, has been a great advocate. The Ohio Newspaper Association has been one of the strongest supporters of this, because right now, your reporters sitting in your newsrooms, if they thought that a company in your coverage area was up to no good right now, and if they wanted to see what agencies and state government is doing business with that company, they'd have to do a public records request to every Tom, Dick, and Harry state agency in the state, and who knows how those records requests would come back and what timing. Whereas if we can get this done, they'll just be able to go in their computer, type in ABC Consulting or XYZ Construction. It'll show every single check expended to that entity over the past 7 years, the agency that sent the check to them, the amount of it, and the purpose of it. Mr. Hetzel at the Newspaper Association suggested that we build the database in a way that's downloadable, because he explained that a lot of investigative journalists like to have this information in spreadsheets so they can sort it and analyze patterns, so it'll be built in that way as well. And on top of that, it'll also be built in a way where you can compare agency to agency, so you can see there's context with the information. One of my pet peeves is when public officials spend taxpayer money to go on these crazy junkets to Hawaii and Disney World and elsewhere. You might have seen in the Dispatch about a month ago, there was a story about a school superintendent who was spending thousands of dollars of taxpayer money to stay at the Waldorf Astoria and the Ritz-Carlton and the Broadmoor and buying booze and whatnot. He's been referred to the prosecutor in Franklin County. About a year ago, the school employee retirement system board member, who's a bus driver from Ashtabula County, she was emphatic that the only place she can get her continuing education was in Hawaii. We said, well, maybe you can go somewhere like Cincinnati or Indianapolis or somewhere that's less expensive, and that's the kind of behavior we're trying to stop by exposing it. And I'm a big believer in the concept that sunlight is the greatest disinfectant to government waste, and I think when you shine sunlight on government spending, it makes bureaucrats and politicians think twice before they waste taxpayer money, or even worse, defraud the citizens. Something I mentioned earlier that I want to explain a little better is how we've cut the budget every year